How did your sibling destroy your peace? My brother required everyone to speak to him in third person because pronouns like you were too intimate for siblings. So I had to say things like, would Robbie pass the salt? Or he'd lock me in the closet. My brother Robbie had always been weird about personal connections. He wouldn't hug anyone, not even our parents. He ate meals in his room because sharing food felt too intimate. When he turned 14, he read some philosophy book about emotional distance and became obsessed with the idea that modern families were too enmeshed. He started calling our parents by their first names, then just male parent and female parent. When I was 12 and he was 16, he discovered linguistics and decided that pronouns directed at him were violating his boundaries. Robbie called a family meeting to announce his new rule. No one could address him directly anymore. Instead of, can you pass the salt? We had to say, could Robbie pass the salt? Speaking to him as you was emotional assault. Using his name in third person maintained healthy boundaries. He'd printed laminated cards with examples. Mom laughed at first, but Robbie screamed that she was forcing intimacy on him through pronouns. He wouldn't stop until she agreed. Dad gave in immediately. They thought it was just another weird phase, but Robbie was deadly serious about protecting himself from our pronouns. Robbie's new rule was immediately so exhausting. Every sentence directed at him had to be restructured. Did Robbie finish his homework? Instead of, did you finish your homework? If you slipped and said you, he'd launch into hours of lectures about how second person pronouns created false intimacy between siblings. He kept expanding what counted as violations. Your was banned too. We couldn't say your room, it had to be Robbie's room. Even he was too direct when we talked about him to others. Every reference had to be Robbie by name. Our parents enabled it completely, restructuring their speech to keep peace. The punishments escalated constantly. First just lectures, then essays on appropriate sibling boundaries. One you meant copying philosophy texts for hours. He installed a counterbell he'd ring for every violation, keeping score on a whiteboard. 3 strikes in one day meant total silent treatment until we'd written formal apologies in third person. He'd interrupt constantly to correct us, and he made us practice conversations before family dinners, rehearsing how to speak without ever addressing him directly. It infected every aspect of my life. Friends stopped coming over because he'd berate them for using normal pronouns with him. He got teachers to address him only in third person, claiming second person address was harassment. Every interaction with him became a grammatical performance where one wrong word meant hours of punishment. When I was in 10th grade, I started dating Mark and decided I was not going to let Robbie corrupt this one normal thing in my life. I told Mark about the pronoun rules and he was horrified. At his house, I could speak normally, and it felt like breathing after being underwater. When Mark came to dinner, I warned him about the rules, but he forgot and said, "Nice to meet you," to Robbie. The explosion was instant. Robbie screamed about boundaries while Mark stared in shock. I grabbed Mark and left, telling Robbie I was done with his insane demands. For 2 weeks, I addressed Robbie normally on purpose. Hey, can you turn down your music? Did you take my charger? He'd ring his bell frantically, blast air horns, demand essays, but I just ignored him. I thought if I held firm, he'd realize how ridiculous this was. Our parents begged me to comply, but I refused. I was done performing third person just to exist in my own home. Robbie lost his mind when I kept using normal pronouns. He started following me with a megaphone, announcing my violations to the house. Sister said you at 2:30. He installed a speaker in my room that played recordings of his lectures on loop whenever I was home. He convinced our parents I was deliberately torturing him. They started punishing me for his meltdowns, taking my phone when I used you, grounding me for saying your. Meanwhile, he escalated to physical barriers. He built a plastic shield he'd hold between us so my pronouns couldn't reach him. He wore noise-canceling headphones and demanded I write all communication to him, but only in approved third-person format. He made our parents install a doorbell system where I had to request permission to speak near him, promising to use only third person. When I refused, he started destroying my belongings as pronoun violation fines. And when that wasn't enough, he called 911 claiming I was assaulting him with pronouns. He told the dispatcher I'd said you to him 15 times that day and he needed protection. When police arrived, they realized he was unstable when he started screaming that the police were assaulting him with their pronouns when they said, "Are you okay? He's been in treatment for 6 months."